Yo, welcome back. Because what you're about to hear is not just another story from the fine fellers and fellettes at O'Reilly, but the kind of revelation that makes you stop, stare, and rethink everything you thought you knew about a man named Derek Bieri, a man the world believed had mastered life as effortlessly as he mastered any old engine tossed into his garage, a man whose fame exploded through Vice Grip Garage, earning him millions, building an audience of over 3 million subscribers who adored watching him resurrect abandoned cars, turning piles of rust into roaring engines, all while living what looked like a dream life on a Tennessee farm, surrounded by rolling hills, a loving family, and sunlight cutting through the trees like a postcard. But behind that perfect picture was a truth darker and sharper than anyone imagined. Because in 2023, something happened that didn't just shake him, it nearly destroyed him. It wasn't a burnout, not a financial crash, not a YouTube meltdown or criticism. It was something so sudden and violent that life simply split into a before and after, all triggered by one split-second accident inside his beloved garage, right in front of the son he adored, a 12-year-old boy who watched helplessly as the man he thought was invincible had his entire world collapse in front of him. But to understand why that moment nearly broke Derek Bieri, the man the world thought could fix anything, you have to go back, way back to May 16, 1984, when he was born in Minot, North Dakota, a cold, quiet place where winter swallowed the land for months, where snowstorms buried fields, and families survived not through money or convenience, but through grit, determination, and hands that knew how to mend what others would throw away. His childhood home, a small white farmhouse standing alone against endless flat fields and a sky so wide it could swallow you, wasn't filled with luxuries, it was filled with the smell of oil, the sound of engines coughing through the cold, and a father who woke long before dawn, fighting frozen machines with nothing but stubbornness and skill. Because in a place like that, you don't buy new, you fix what's broken. Derek didn't grow up playing with toys, he grew up dismantling them, sitting in the barn watching as his father's calloused hands breathe life into dying tractors. By age 3, he was taking apart his own toys just to understand how they worked. By 5, he was repairing the lawnmower using nothing but instinct and determination, listening carefully to the sputter of the engine like it was a language only he could hear. Their family couldn't afford new tools, so dinners became lessons in reusing old parts. His father taught him that anything with bolts had potential, and waste was the enemy. At 6, he fixed his bike chain without anyone knowing. At 7, he was repairing farm tools using junkyard scraps. By the time he was a child, his grandfather's war stories, patching busted military vehicles under fire, became late-night inspiration as he stayed up trying to apply those battlefield lessons in a frozen barn filled with old, forgotten machines. At age 7, he built his first go-kart from a baby stroller frame and a lawnmower engine. It cost less than $10, but it carried a priceless spark, proof that he could create something out of nothing. That spark turned into a fire. The go-kart became several. The junk in the yard became treasure. When he found a rusted 1972 farm truck with a seized engine, he spent 14 freezing nights reviving it, his breath fogging in the lamplight as his fingers numbed. But he got it running. In 2001, in his high school auto shop class, he rebuilt a 1972 Chevy Nova carburetor with a level of precision most adults couldn't match, earning ribbons, praise, and recognition. But deep down, none of that mattered as much as the satisfaction of knowing he'd torn the machine down to its bones and resurrected it bolt by bolt. At 16, when money was tight, he bought a beat-up 1985 Honda Civic for $200 and replaced the entire transmission with junkyard parts using strength, improvisation, and willpower. And then came the day that changed him forever. At 17, while welding a scrap fender, he miscalculated for the first and almost last time. His index finger fused to the scorching metal, the pain exploding through him and sending him to the hospital. It was a brutal, unforgettable wake-up call, one that carved a scar into both his hand and his mind. But instead of quitting, he devoured safety protocols and mastered welding like a soldier studying battlefield maps. It was the first sign that while Derek could fix machines, every mistake came with a cost, and someday a cost would come that even he couldn't pay. After high school in 2002, Derek stepped into a local college automotive tech program where late-night lab sessions became his sanctuary, a place where he slowly and methodically pulled apart V8 engines bolt by bolt, while other students packed up early, leaving him alone under buzzing fluorescent lights, wiping grime from pistons, brushing carbon from valves, and lining every screw in perfect order as professors realized he wasn't the fastest student in the room, but he was the most precise, the kind of meticulous worker whose hands moved with purpose rather than speed, unknowingly shaping the calm, deliberate mechanical style that millions would one day watch on YouTube. But before any of those skills could turn into a career, Derek made a decision that would shape him even more deeply. At just 18, he joined the U.S. Army. They sent him to Fort Gordon, Georgia, where he became an information technology specialist responsible for keeping satellite and communication systems alive during simulated combat operations. 12-hour shifts filled with glitches, pressure, and the kind of high-stakes troubleshooting where failure wasn't an option. The military hardened him, sharpened him, taught him how to stay calm when everything around him was falling apart. And then, in 2004, at age 20, the stakes rose even higher when he deployed to Iraq. During a patrol near Baghdad, his convoy's Humvee suddenly broke down. No power, no cover, no time. Exposed in hostile territory, Derek slid under the truck with nothing but a flashlight and instinct, traced the electrical system like a surgeon, found a fried relay, and bypassed it using scraps and hand tools. He got the engine running again and kept the convoy moving, a moment his commanding officer never forgot. And he didn't stop there. Later that year, he coded his own diagnostic program, a simple but brilliant piece of software that allowed soldiers to diagnose electrical issues in their vehicles without waiting for external support. That tool saved countless hours in the field and even helped him fix a fellow soldier's failing 1990 Jeep Wrangler, earning him a reputation as the guy who could fix anything anywhere. Then came the laptop theft in 2005. Enemy saboteurs stole a crucial control laptop from a transport truck, effectively disabling the vehicle. With nothing but determination, Derek scavenged old cables from trash, stripped parts from a dead generator, and built an entirely custom wiring harness from scratch in just 2 nights. The truck fired up, the mission continued. The Army quietly issued him a commendation. Discharged in 2007 at age 23, he returned to North Dakota with grit, discipline, technical mastery, and something to prove. The first thing he tackled wasn't a job. It was a rusted 1969 Chevy Camaro. He pulled the engine by himself, rewired the entire car, patched holes in the floor, cleaned every bolt, sanded every corner, and rebuilt it in the bitter cold of his parents' driveway, his breath freezing in the air as he worked. By 24, he walked into a Minot dealership, still carrying the instincts of a soldier and the hands of a mechanic. He tore through transmissions, more than 500 in a single year, most of them GM6s notorious for destroying inexperienced technicians. His success rate? An unheard of 98%. Word spread quickly. He wasn't flashy, but everything he touched came back to life. After hours, he sat alone studying old service manuals, circling diagrams, highlighting wiring pathways, figuring out what others gave up on. By 2009, he became the shop's unofficial teacher, the guy whose instructions became gospel. By 2010, at just 26, he was managing a team of 15 across a regional auto chain, still wearing coveralls, still checking torque settings, still walking the shop floor. Then he introduced something no one expected, a salvage reuse system that cataloged every screw, gasket, and bracket from scrap vehicles. Not to be cheap, but to be smart, cutting costs by 30% and earning him an invitation to present the system at a national meeting. Soon the entire chain adopted it. His reputation grew: humble leader, sharp mind, ethical backbone. In 2012, he became vice president of operations for a Midwest parts company, negotiating over $2 million in supplier contracts. He shifted the company's values by choosing vendors based not only on price but on how they treated their workers: fair wages, safe facilities, ethical practices. Over 2 years, the company's employee turnover dropped 40%. Trade magazines took notice. A quiet leader with results, integrity, and vision. Then 2014 hit like a hammer. At age 30, now CEO, he stayed late reviewing financial reports one night and found numbers that didn't make sense. Instead of handing the problem off, he spent night after night tracing invoices, spreadsheets, and ledgers until he uncovered the horrifying truth: $150,000 missing, stolen by his own CFO through fake invoices and phantom vendors. Betrayal cut him like a blade. But he didn't crumble. He tracked down $120,000, pressed charges, fired the CFO, and told his entire staff the truth. No secrets, no spin. The business community was stunned, not just by the theft, but by how quickly he acted, how fiercely he protected his people, how transparent he was. And maybe that's why 2 years later, when the world finally saw a different side of Derek Bieri, it felt so genuine. In 2016, exhausted from corporate politics and betrayal, he began filming in his garage. No fancy cameras, no crew, just a taped-up iPhone, flickering shop lights, rusted metal, and a man reconnecting with the only thing that ever made sense. He didn't do it for fame. He didn't do it for money. He did it because picking up a wrench healed him in ways spreadsheets never could. But the world noticed, and everything began to change. His videos weren't polished, they weren't scripted, they weren't decorated with cinematic angles or Hollywood edits. They were raw, honest, greasy, imperfect slices of real life. Mistakes left in, knuckles scraped, curses mumbled under his breath, laughter breaking through frustration. And somehow, that authenticity hit harder than any perfect production ever could. Because people didn't want another shiny influencer, they wanted truth. They wanted someone who reminded them of their own dad, their own uncle, their own neighbor working in a cold garage at midnight. And without even trying, Derek became that man for millions. Vice Grip Garage was born in those late-night sessions. In the quiet hours when he was rebuilding more than cars, he was rebuilding himself. It grew slowly at first, then all at once, crossing 1.39 million subscribers and 250 million views, powered not by polish, but by a man searching for peace. But none of that rise, none of that stability, none of that calm would have been possible without Jessica. They met as teenagers at the Minot County Fair in 2000 on 17-year-old farm kids with secondhand boots, calloused hands, and families who taught them to work harder than they complained. They fell into step easily, and by July 19, 2008, they were married in a backyard ceremony with 50 people, dirt roads, folding chairs, and nothing fancy. Just vows, hope, and a long road ahead. Derek had just come home from military service, trying to re-enter civilian life, and Jessica became the steady center of his world. For 24 years, through military deployments, job changes, cross-state moves, corporate chaos, house repairs, financial stress, and raising 4 kids, they stayed. By choice, not fairy tale magic. Finishing each other's thoughts, surviving each other's exhaustion, and communicating in glances more than words. Their biggest life change arrived on March 17, 2010. Twin boys, Bailey and Bradley, 2 fragile newborns who changed their world overnight. Derek was flying for meetings and leading operations, but at home he was on 2 a.m. bottle duty, juggling diapers and laptops with equal desperation. The guilt ate at him. Every flight felt like he was leaving his family behind. Every night away felt like a memory he'd never get back. Jessica ran the house, the schedules, the finances, and the chaos, becoming the quiet hero who kept everything from crashing. In 2012, Bentley arrived, and in 2015, a daughter whose name the family still keeps private. That same year, Derek's company nearly imploded. The embezzlement scandal, the lawsuits, the betrayal. He was drowning in stress, working 60-hour weeks, barely talking, barely sleeping. Their marriage strained under the weight. Nights went silent, weeks felt heavy, but they still didn't quit. Then came the moment Jessica saved him. In 2016, she looked him in the eyes and told him something was wrong. Derek admitted the truth he'd been hiding from everyone, even himself. He was burnt out, breaking, afraid he'd lose himself or lose the family he loved. That conversation changed everything. Together, they decided he would leave the corporate world, not in a dramatic exit, but slowly, quietly, intentionally. Vice Grip Garage, once a simple hobby, became his escape, his therapy, and ultimately, his future. By 2018, they packed up everything and moved to Lewisburg, Tennessee. Warmer weather, no state income tax, homeschooling, open land, and a chance to breathe again. Derek found balance in the sound of wrenches instead of boardrooms. He wasn't chasing titles anymore, he was chasing life. And he caught it. His first VGG video from 2000 Savannah, simple oil change on a 1969 Camaro, got maybe 50 views, but the honesty in that shaky camera angle caught the attention of real car guys. While other creators built studios with perfect lighting, Derek filmed with taped-up phones, flickering bulbs, and tools older than he was. Those raw videos built a community that valued truth over spectacle. In 2018, he walked away from corporate life completely, and a simple revival of a 1969 Camaro Z28, built with an iPhone, a $100 small block from an Impala, zip-tied exhaust, a crudely chopped hood, racked up over 848,000 views. That video proved what everyone now knows. Authenticity always wins. But his legend grew when he tackled a $300 rust corpse of a 1972 Plymouth Duster. It leaked, it rattled, it fought him every mile. But he duct taped it, bungee corded it, and drove it 100 miles home, without brakes, without fear, and without a single ounce of pretense. That video became a cult classic and launched him past 100,000 subscribers by mid-2018. And then, the crisis, 2019. hackers broke into his channel, plastered obscene content, nearly destroyed years of work. But Derek, the IT soldier who once fixed military systems under fire, fought back. He rebuilt the channel, protected his systems, and turned the experience into a teaching moment for creators everywhere. Through every rise, every fall, every crisis, one truth remained: he never pretended to be perfect. He showed the fights, the failures, the bad welds, the busted knuckles, the broken bolts, and the human moments between. And that honesty didn't just build a YouTube channel, it built one of the most loyal communities on the internet. And behind all of it, every car, every video, every comeback, stood Jessica, the woman who steadied him, believed in him, and walked beside him through the storms he never talked about publicly. The man who could fix anything spent half his life learning how to fix engines, transmissions, and rusty frames. But it took years, and one terrifying moment, for him to realize that some things, especially the things that hurt the most, couldn't be fixed with tools. And that moment, the one that nearly killed him, the one his son watched happen in that garage, was still waiting just around the corner. As the years rolled forward, Derek's followers didn't drift away. They rooted themselves even deeper beside him, showing up in the comments with advice, offering their own garage wisdom, and sending encouragement like a family that refused to break apart. And when the world slammed shut in 2020 during the pandemic, leaving millions trapped indoors, searching for something genuine and comforting, Derek leaned harder into the only thing he ever truly knew, bringing dead machines back to life with nothing but stubbornness, humor, and heart. That year he pulled a 1964 Ford Falcon from its grave and breathed life into it the same way he had done countless times before. Except this time, in that exact moment, he shouted a phrase that would echo across the internet and become a permanent part of his identity: "Send it." And those two words became a battle cry for people who were tired, overwhelmed, and desperate for something real. It wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a reminder that hesitation kills dreams, that imperfect action beats perfect waiting, that sometimes you just have to throw caution aside and believe something broken can run again. The timing was perfect. People stuck inside their homes clicked on his video for entertainment, but found something deeper: hope wrapped in oil stains and ratchet straps. By the end of 2020, Vice Grip Garage crossed 500,000 subscribers, and fans realized they weren't just watching a man fix cars, they were watching a man refuse to quit, no matter how rough life got. A year later, in 2021, Derek tracked down a 1965 Mustang that looked more like a horror movie prop than a car. Rotting in a Minnesota junkyard, all four wheels locked solid, the roof crushed in, animal skeletons inside, the kind of car even scrapyards don't want. But Derek didn't see garbage, he saw potential. He built his own trailer, dragged the corpse 500 miles to Tennessee, and through sheer determination made it snarl back to life. It wasn't a polished showroom restoration. It was raw, loud, violent survival, the kind of thing only Derek could do, and over 2 million people watched that resurrection. Then came his wildest challenge yet: driving a dilapidated 1970 Chevy 10 ice cream truck across 700 miles during the Midwest drags. The thing barely hit 75 miles an hour before the speedometer quit. The brakes were laughable, it rattled like a haunted carnival ride, and he somehow managed to serve hot dogs out of the back between roadside repairs, turning chaos into community. And the internet watched in awe as more than 1.5 million viewers tuned in to witness the madness. But 2022 punched him hard when a thief broke into his Tennessee garage and stole a freshly rebuilt $1,200 Holley carburetor, a key piece for an upcoming build. It wasn't just theft, it was a gut punch, a violation of the sacred space where he poured his soul into rusty metal. The camera captured the moment he discovered the loss, a flicker of hurt behind calm eyes, and fans responded like a swarm of loyal watchdogs, flooding the comments with leads, encouragement, and outrage. Derek upgraded to new locks, multiple cameras, motion detectors, and somehow the whole ordeal only made his bond with his audience stronger. Then came 2023 year. Derek shocked the racing world. During Sick Week, piloting his beloved Chevelle Independence, he blasted a blistering 9.73-second quarter mile at 140 miles per hour. It was insane enough on its own, but the real insanity was the fact he was still running a stock-style 10-bolt rear end, a setup no sane racer would trust at those speeds. He scribbled "Pray for me" on the differential cover and floored it anyway, launching himself into rattletrap legend status while Jessica rode shotgun, handing him snacks, running logistics, helping with tools, and proving yet again she was the heartbeat behind everything. Inside, Independence was nothing glamorous. mostly original, with a 6-point roll bar and racing belts older than he was, strapped around a Pro Charger-fed big block that sounded like thunder trapped in steel. That single pass sent subscriber numbers skyrocketing to 1.8 million. Then later in 2023, Derek stepped into the world of television. Motor Trend launched Roadworthy Rescues, and their very first episode featured Derek restoring a 1970 Chevelle that hadn't moved in 26 years. In 1 week, he dragged it from death to roadworthy, then drove it 600 miles through unpredictable Tennessee weather. The show kept his signature grit and humor, but layered it with professional editing, and the industry noticed. It earned a Daytime Emmy nomination for editing. Yet even with that success, the heart of the show never changed. One guy, low budget, no excuses, pouring his soul into broken machines. By 2024, Derek Bieri wasn't just a garage mechanic with a YouTube channel. He was the leader of a rust resurrection empire built on honesty, grit, and second chances. ViceGrip Garage crossed 2.2 million subscribers and 756 million views without scripts, without a crew, without a production studio. His videos often ran for 60-100 minutes. Filmed at 2 a.m. under dim garage bulbs while his family slept, the air thick with coffee and determination. What began as low-budget revivals had evolved into a business model so unconventional even industry veterans couldn't understand it. He fixed cars and sold them for $50, $100 over cost, just enough to fund the next build. It didn't make him rich quickly, but it made him trusted, and that trust eventually turned into a $5 million net worth through YouTube. Sponsorships like Bare Metal Zombie, Motor Trend features, and merchandise drops that evaporated from the internet in hours. Then came ViceGrip Lodge, his 2024 merchandise line inspired by Sick Week. He released 10,000 Pray For Me differential covers featuring custom artwork from his wild racing runs. Every single one sold out in 2 days. Fans proudly posted photos of them mounted in garages, painted, displayed like trophies. These weren't merch items, they were badges of belonging, bits of the story people could hold in their hands. And then came Sick Week 2024. Derek didn't win first place. He didn't bring home a medal or a trophy. He won something louder, the roar of a community that had watched him fight for years, who knew the storms he'd survived, who knew he wasn't building an empire of wealth but an empire of grit, authenticity, family, and second chances. And little did anyone know, while the world cheered and the engines roared, a moment was coming that would nearly take Derek's life, break his spirit, and change him and his family forever. While trying to compete in his monstrous 1971 Chevelle named Liberty, a roaring brute powered by a 540 cubic inch big block and a turbo 400 transmission, Derek Bieri faced yet another mechanical nightmare when his turbo swap catastrophically failed mid-run, killing the engine instantly. Yet, instead of panicking or hiding from the disaster, he did what only he would dare to do. He live-streamed the entire breakdown to more than 50,000 people, calmly dissecting every failure from bolt specifications to pressure inconsistencies in what became less of a crash and more of a raw, unfiltered masterclass in mechanical understanding, humility, and problem-solving under pressure. The crowd watching online crowned him the event's top spectator pick, a title earned not through speed, but through authenticity, honesty, and the way he handled chaos with a steady voice even while surrounded by seasoned giants like Cletus McFarland and the PFI Speed crew, proving once again that Derek didn't just compete, he stood out. And then without warning came the silence. In early 2025, his uploads stopped cold. Fans panicked. Rumors swirled across forums like wildfire: burnout, scandal, disappearance, injury. No explanation, just absence. But Derek wasn't gone. He was deep in the garage, buried in grease, restoring a demanding 1968 Plymouth Fury alongside his kids, working quietly with no cameras, no crew, just the sound of tools and family voices echoing through the cold Tennessee air. When he finally posted a small, quiet vlog showing his boys helping him wrench and Jessica sorting bolts beside him, everything calmed instantly. Fans didn't just forgive the break, they rallied harder, offering support like family that refused to let him fall. What they didn't know, not then, not immediately, was the truth, that Fury had nearly killed him. One freezing evening in late 2023, while he was underneath the car fighting a rust-fused exhaust bolt, the oil-slick floor betrayed him. The jack stand slipped, and 4,000 pounds of American steel came crashing down, slamming onto his arm and missing his head by inches. His son Bentley, only 12, witnessed the entire thing. Jessica sprinted out screaming, and through sheer instinct, adrenaline, and luck, Derek yanked his arm free with no broken bones, Only bruises, a few tears, and a brand new philosophy that would reshape his work forever. That night, the family sat together, shaken but united, and made a pact: safety comes first. They chose fewer uploads instead of weekly chaos, choosing life over algorithms, family over deadlines. Maybe fans never heard the story, but they felt the shift. And even as the internet kept guessing, assuming burnout, boredom, drama, Derek quietly transformed. In a 2024 restoration of a barn-find Chevy, he didn't brag about the near-death moment, but every double-checked jack stand, every wheel chock, every slow explanation carried the silent message: fixing cars is only worth it if you're alive to drive them. Then 2025 pushed that philosophy deeper. During Sick Week prep, a $3,000 donor engine he bought ready to run locked up the moment he tried installing it. The crankshaft wouldn't budge. A rusted piston was hidden inside, and the clock was running out. Most people would have abandoned the project. Not Derek. He dove into farm stock leftovers, rebuilt the carburetor by hand, rigged a salvage transmission, and even built a makeshift engine stand out of scrap. The whole ordeal became a disaster-turned-instructional masterpiece, showing beginners how to avoid the exact $3,000 trap he'd fallen into. And later that same year, he built something different. His first intentional drag car, not resurrected from decay but designed from the ground up. A 1970 Nova with reinforced frame rails, a properly engineered roll cage, upgraded brakes, a custom fuel cell, and every well done with the patience of a man who finally learned the cost of rushing. On its very first run, the Nova cracked 150 miles per hour, and fans instantly understood that the Derek they were watching was no longer trying to outdo others. He was trying to outdo yesterday's version of himself. By 2025, at 41 years old, Derek Bieri was no longer just the scrappy mechanic with a camera. He was the steward of a 3 million subscriber channel, a $7 million net worth, and a legacy built on more than 10,000 restored cars, each one a lesson in grit, survival, and second chances. His Tennessee farm wasn't just a home. It was a headquarters, a sanctuary, a monument to the life he rebuilt after leaving the corporate grind that nearly crushed him. The numbers were staggering, but the legacy wasn't in the views or the dollars. It was in the honesty, the patience, the community that grew with every bolt he explained and every mistake he left on camera. Even at the height of his fame, Derek never stopped being the dad who let his kids hold the light, turn the wrench, laugh in the background, or yell when a bolt slipped. In one 2025 video, he tuned a Camaro with his sons beside him, and the clip hit 1 million views, not because the car was special, but because the family was real. Bailey, Bradley, and Bentley weren't props. They were apprentices. Jessica wasn't behind the scenes. She was beside him, filming, organizing, driving, teaching, and holding the whole operation together. Their life wasn't curated. It was lived, raw and honest, and that rhythm is what people truly came for. Then whispers of something new surfaced. In late 2025, Derek teased a book, not a brag-filled memoir, but a mixture of racing secrets, budget-building wisdom, and quiet confessions about fear, pressure, and healing. It would be a manual wrapped inside therapy, a blueprint for both engines and emotions. And still, he wasn't slowing down. In 2026, he planned to take a twin-turbo Falcon into the Midwest drags, aiming for a sub-9-second pass. But he wouldn't keep the money from that race. Every dollar would go towards scholarships for young mechanics back in Minot, North Dakota, the frozen place where all of this began, where a little boy once sat beside his father in a cold barn learning that broken things can live again if you love them enough to try.